So what's good, everybody? We back here with another review of AEW Dynamite. Just under 24 hours of it's off the air, and I gotta say, wasn't as impressive as the last couple episodes were, in my opinion. But we have build. Moxley got assaulted backstage after supposed to schedule the contract signing with Kenny Omega come December. Orange Cassidy faced off against Kip Sabian. Serena Deeb defended her NWA Women's Championship against the former NWA Women's Champion out of Thunder Rosa that I thought left AEW in certain reports. And our main event was Darby Allin and Cody Rhodes against, yeah, we can say that again, Brian Cage and Ricky Starks. Team Taz, and we had a swerve on the main event. We opened up with Top Flight against the Young Bucks. And the match was as basic as you can say. Like, why don't they do stuff like that on Dark to actually issue people to fucking watch? Sorry to cuss, but it's like you make these matches, and that undermines the world tag champions as any semblance of a threat when they have an over 15-minute haul against two guys that barely anybody heard of, and they only had a vignette to their name. No one's gonna take that seriously. Even experienced wrestling fans that are literal professional wrestlers are going to be like, who the hell are these guys? Why are they important? Why have the Young Bucks picked them out of any other guy that were building their names over the ranking system, actually making a name for themselves and actually competing to get a spot for the World Tag Titles? So you're telling me that these random jobbers just get an opportunity? That's just my opinion on the matter. I don't really care. Young Bucks won off their BTE trigger after a couple planchas, then a plancha, springboard moonsault into a plancha. Then we had, I think, handspring into a Hurricane Rana. The match was like just flips with very minimal storytelling, especially over the glimpse of like their vignette being like, we're finally given the chance, and the Young Bucks are given this opportunity. Then it comes with 2HQ assaulting Top Flight because 2HQ obviously know that they're not getting over in a national setting. They're jobbers, even though I think they're gifted athletes, and yes, I have watched them when Lucha Underground was actually a thing, but they come around having this slow-paced match with FTR when they defended their tag team belts, and then nothing else after that. So obviously that's out of the question. And then we had like Darby Allin versus Kip Sabian versus Orange Cassidy, or Kip Sabian is just freaking rip off Euro Brian Kendrick with very little charisma, and his physical ability comes from another big dude like Ezekiel Jackson. But I actually don't mind Miro and his gamer gimmick, even repeatedly, like when they were doing Revolution, like the WWE is trying to hold us back. Everybody else thought we wouldn't make it. Let's be honest, we wouldn't make it. I'm a transgendered person of color, so that means I'm obviously the constant underdog. And oh my God, Nyla, shut up before I put you in Nia Jax territory. In oh my goodness, it's just exhausting as well. Like their consistency to put WWE in their mouth. Like they didn't even care. First of all, Triple H already buried you guys on national television, already calling you a piss-out company that Vince would buy out anyway. And most of your talent are barely even mainstream appeal, so you guys just feeling like you're the undermining underdogs with a promotion, even though you guys like paid quarter mil to make Miro a big hoss jobber. A gamer jobber gimmick. Hence the gamer, and hence the jobber. It's just not enticing if you want it to be, and that's just my opinion on the matter. And just consistently provoking AEW's existence just on the hence to like spite WWE. That's not a good image for your company. It makes you guys look a bit bitter. A bit bitter, if you know what I'm saying. Just a bit bitter. That just that's just out of pocket. That's just out of sight. I don't think it's like a good image, especially for your company, to to consistently like bash on the company that made Cody what it was in the first place. So that's just my opinion on the matter. Next up, we had, of course, uh, Inner Circle. I'm gonna loop the final two segments. The funnest thing was they drank Everclear after doing the same joke that they did back at that steak dinner, and then they ended up completely having Conan on it with, of course, Proud and Powerful that looks like a WNBA faction, completely like bringing Conan in, letting them smoke in the limo, and it ends with Hornswoggle in a diaper out of a hangover joke. Sammy Guevara gets married to three women. You see Santana weirdly working out. I don't know what Jake Hager's doing. Santana and Swoggles in a diaper, even though I saw him on Impact recently. So, to be honest, this was funner than the last couple segments they have been having with MJF. It was more like cinematically orchestrated, so you wouldn't have any awkwardness, like them balloons flying to the wind after celebrating Jericho's birthday after the MJF's induction to join the Inner Circle. So yeah, it's better than any segment involving the last couple segments, especially the dancing segment. That I thought devalued them as well, like threatening heels, and they're making guys that are obviously enough to conduct heat or semblance of having some mainstream like heels to actually build for your show because you guys have an issue actually making characters other than Cody looking like he's $1,000,000, even though you guys barely even rack in 800,000 viewers a week. So that's just my opinion. I'm gonna keep saying that because it's true. We had Kip Sabian against Orange Cassidy 1-on-1, and this is due to breaking their video game. He's a grown man complaining over a broken video game while he makes money on Twitch and AEW, so I don't know where the thing comes from. The match was basic as it was. He kept doing triangle enziguris on the outside, the same pocket spot. And Orange Cassidy is coming from like being over and having main event to main event matches for the TNT title and feuding with Chris Jericho, and you let him face off against these jobbers. I have no faith that he's going to be in the top of the card like that again, but at least have some semblance of pride of having Miro wrestle him thinks that was his video game, and they're not even teasering that much of the wedding over this rip-off Brian Kendrick Euro jobber that's only relevant because somebody said North F England when they were supposed to say Norfolk, but that's beside my point. It ends with Cradle over to a pinning pinning move after some reversals. The match was as forgettable as it can get. There was a couple botches. The coolest thing to happen was Miro like making him literally turn into a turnstile, giving him a brutal clothesline at the end of it, and they run off. That's practically it. The match was as forgettable as you can take it from there. Later on, we had earlier on we had Moxley giving out a promo over his father, how he got in so much trouble, why it's been so long he's been world champion, and later on we had the contract signing after the Cassidy and Sabian match, and as soon as we had the same smarky introduction over. He is also a Wrestling Illustrated Wrestling Observer Hall of Famer, even though he's still wrestling. So why is he in the Hall of Fame? I mean, yes, Ric Flair was still wrestling at the point when he was still getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, but it's Ric Flair in his 60s, still competing, and he was in the Hall of Fame still at the same year at WrestleMania. So that makes sense. Kurt Angle had enough time over his resume from over a 15-year career to be in the Hall of Fame and still compete. Kenny Omega probably been wrestling around the Indies for like 10 years. Barely anybody have heard of him except his dumbass Okada matches over his brilliance of his trilogy with Okada and stuff he did in PWG and all this stuff that nobody heard about, and yet he's in the he's a Hall of Fame. That practically, if you give that to some kid, it's like, well, okay, what does this really do to make him important? And it's like Moxley's been in the top card picture for a while, and he's been able to even have like cool matches with Eddie Kingston. What makes Kenny Omega different? All because he gets to wrestle with more athletic people. It's not impressive in any means of the word. It just later on, it just ends up with John Moxley getting assaulted by a mysterious man. Some people bring it up to probably be Kenny Omega before the thing, or Hangman Adam Page. Earlier on, we had also Brandy getting assaulted by the same chick she disrespected from last week. I think it was Jade something. Something. She was hyping up Shaq coming into AEW and trying to beat up uh, Cody. And Isla Rose and Vicky Guerrero were holding authorities back so she can hurt her arm. And he came up with Red Velvet, Big Swole's big forehead ass, and of course, I think I forgot somebody else. Other than that, that was the entire segment. That was the entire segment. I'm being serious. So we had an entertaining segment involving the inner circle. We had okay segment. We had okay match. We had like one decent match that shouldn't even been a long match in the first place, and Kip Sabian. Next up, we had Pac return in action against the Blade 1-on-1 with Eddie Kingston out commentary, and the match was fine as you can get it. They brawl a bit. We had a Top Gun Hello standing moonsault. I'll just end it with some forearms, and then there was a shooting star press into the Punisher. And as soon as like the Butcher and Blade and Eddie Kingston were beating up on him, Ray Phoenix were coming to defend his former Death Triangle mate that barely even stood a year, and then Pentagon came out to try to think that he's helping Eddie Kingston. Nah, after assaulting his brother, he comes and saves him with a chair. Death Triangle returns on Dynamite. I guess we're gonna have like a 6-man tag, or something in the future. This is colliding over a lot of stuff. Thanks, Pentagon and Eddie been shown to have a relationship beyond even like the brotherhood of like him and his brother. And of course, they already had a faction beforehand. The whole COVID thing started, so yeah, it's nice to see. I guess a group back in Pac back on television because he still is in good shape. The guy obviously has an intimidating factor to him, even though he's pretty undersized. But I don't mind that because at least he looks like a wrestler, even though he just like a drenched up, sweaty like midget, just incredible with a weasel face, and his facial structure is like a freaking light bulb with black noodles on it. But other than that, Pac is fine. I don't mind him, even though he's supposed to be pushed more up to the okay. It's called the Brutalizer. Sorry about that. Mishandling of his name. Sorry about that. It's Jade Cargill that assaulted Brandy Rhodes later on after the match. So sorry about that confusion. But it's gonna be cool to see what Pac's gonna do, especially with a good promo like Eddie Kingston. So NWA Women's Championship would be on the line. This would be the only title defense tonight here on Dynamite, and it would be Serena Deeb's defending it against former champion Thunder Rosa. That looked especially good tonight. Sorry, folks. It's called being a human being. I'm going to feed over Thunder Rosa unless she's unattractive. So, the match was as forgettable. I mean, there were some decent spots, but until like Britt Baker came with a twisting neck breaker on Thunder Rosa over the night, and it still got a freaking near fall later on when Serena didn't even know what was happening. Reba was getting assaulted by Thunder Rosa afterwards over the match. The match itself, it was fine. There was like German suplex into the apron. We had a missile dropkick by Thunder Rosa to Deebs. And it ended with a arm capture pedigree for the win. And it's shocking to know that this woman used to be part of the straight edge society where drugs and alcohol will poison you. And she was the bald chick that was technically dating Punk at the time. So that's at least cool enough to know that she looks like a soccer mom now. So yeah, decent match, but forgettable. The story is Britt Baker's now feuding with Thunder Rosa for some apparent reason instead of like aiming for the women's title. And later on, it was just Anna Jay with John Silver issuing that she's now ranked 5 into the women's rankings. Like, oh god, I forgot we had ranking systems. And it ended with her being issued to face off against Hikaru Shida one-on-one on Dynamite next week. And I think John Silver, I know it's his joke with you guys that watch BT, and it's not your fault. It's not funny. I just do it to see whatever the hell is gonna happen with the Dark Order, because literally Brody Lee is the funniest part about the show. And yeah, that's technically it. So Anna Jay gets a title shot next week. And we also have Pac and Phoenix against Butcher and Blade. We'll have Will Hobbs in action. Chris Jericho and Jake Hager will face off against SCU, Christopher Daniels, and Frankie Kazarian. I don't think Scorpio Sky's on his own, but the last few weeks he's been feuding with uh, Sean Spears, and he ended up losing the week before. So I don't know what's gonna happen. So that's technically all the action that we have. Our main event was Ricky Starks and Brian Cage against Cody Rhodes and Darby Allin. Uh, the match was. I hate those guys that be like a match should have more time on it. And I get it when it's pay per view, but I don't get it when it's a live televised program that has to stay in a schedule and be transitioned well. Like we already have commercial issues with AEW when it even comes to like poor signing off when it goes to transitioning to commercial break. And Jim Ross, I always commended for that back on Monday Night Raw because he always treated more professional. And whenever a cool spot happens, he's like, "Oh my God, what's gonna happen here tonight on Tampa Bay?" We'll be right back after this. Don't change your channel. Like, come on, where's the enthusiasm? So we had Arn Anderson getting ejected later on over the matchup. We had some corner running missile drop kicks straight from Darby Allin. We had a exploder suplex, Brian Cage doing the deadlift, but then Cody Rhodes ends up on his feet. We had a spear off Ricky Starks and a top rope Michinoku driver over from Brian Cage to get the win. No, it was called the Drill Claw over to Darby Allin from the top rope. The match was from 11 minutes, especially over the last, 3 minutes. I thought it was going to drag over the top rope finish, and I know they forgot about the finish. So, the match wasn't doing much for me, especially for a main event revolving around guys that are, mid card champions, and we were supposed to have Will Hobbs in the factor. So when Ricky Stark started to jump them, well, I knew Will Hobbs, of course, was going to get involved because he'd been doing that over the last couple of weeks, and it ends up with him coming with a steel chair, then assaulting Cody Rhodes with the TNT title. I mean, with the FTW championship, and now making him a part of Team Taz. So that's the swerve. That's the swerve we never saw coming. Absolutely phenomenal. Uh, Fine surprise moment, but nobody has much to establish over Will Hobbs, except he's been affiliating with Darby Allin and Cody for the last a few months, and especially Jon Moxley, over him just being the wild card factor babyface that's going to help out when the top baby faces are in trouble. And we don't even have that much over establishing his character, except he lost to Brian Cage for the FTW Championship on a random episode of Dynamite. So, this is just completely out of the blue. It was a surprise, and I hope Will Hobbs succeeded, but we don't have that much to establish. Other than he probably needs, a talking piece, so I can see why they want to put him up with Team Taz. So, I guess this is going to be exciting. Some benefactor, we have nothing that impressive come next week on Dynamite, and especially near the holiday season. until probably December. So it's gonna be interesting, but it doesn't seem to be that like really enticing to continue to watch for now. Other than that, this was a Dynamite review. Hopefully next week it's better. Giving this a 5, even though I would give this to a 4 or 3, because I thought the 3 matches were a complete drag. You undervalued the tag team champions, and there's not much promo. Even though you have a lot of time to, and you had like 4 backstage segments. The best thing was the inner circle segment. I thought that the main event was all right. What the finish was good. I'm feeling no excitement, especially over your how you guys actually want to book yourselves to actually be legitimate, like alternative competition. Even though every time you get to make advertise yourselves, you guys just keep WWE in your name. I think that's dumb, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a fan of WWE. I say that because I just don't think that's a business practice. You don't see like the NFL always reference AFL like we that's why we bought out those losers, right? Like come on, man. That's not cool. That doesn't make you look like $1 million. Especially when you guys are just starting over a year of your wrestling fed. It's not a good look. And TN Impact was guilty of doing the exact same thing at the most points of the time, but at least we know they had their own identity, and most of their stuff was somewhat unique from how WWE did some of their stuff, and their stars as well. Like, who do you have that other than like Cody, Jericho are established? MJF just joins Jericho's faction. I like Darby Allin, but there's not much to an anorexic, goth little Mick Foley, and most of your guys are just fodder from WWE trash bin and impacts. So don't come around just always with WWE in your mouth. That's just advice from me, because we know how Impact got it, and now they came from like Spike or Paramount Network now I think they're called, and getting millions of bucks to get like freaking Kevin Nash and Hulk Hogan on television, to having 200 like titty pound Eddie Edwards holding the world championship, and now it's on Rich Swann that put his wife on the trunk. So don't put me on that front. Other than that, that's me. Thanks for watching the DST show. Help me go up to 30 subs. Thanks for watching. That's it for me.